is independent of the person in order to achieve the intended goal. It should always be remembered that the machine can, in some ways, and by these new methods, produce algorithmic choices. The machine makes a technical choice among several possibilities based either on well-defined criteria or on statistical inferences. Human beings, however, not only choose, but in their hearts are capable of deciding. A decision is what we might call a more strategic element of a choice and demands a practical evaluation. At times, frequently, amid the difficult task of governing, we are called upon to make decisions that have consequences for many people. We would condemn humanity to a future without hope if we took away people's ability to make decisions about themselves and their lives by dooming them to depend on the choices of machines. We need to ensure and safeguard a space for proper human control over the choices made by artificial intelligence programs. Human dignity itself depends on it. Precisely in this regard, allow me to insist. In light of the tragedy that is armed conflict, it is urgent to reconsider the development and use of devices like the so-called lethal autonomous weapons, and ultimately ban their use. This starts from an effective and concrete commitment to introduce ever greater and proper human control. No machine should ever choose to take the life of a human being.
Rimettere al centro la dignità della persona in vista di una proposta etica condivisa. A quanto ho già detto, va ora aggiunta un'osservazione più generale. La stagione di innovazione.
A more general observation should now be added to what we have already said. The season of technological innovation in which we are currently living is accompanied by a particular and unprecedented social situation in which it is increasingly difficult to find agreement on the major issues concerning social life, even in communities characterized by social cultural continuity. Heated debates and arguments often arise, making it difficult to produce shared reflections on political solutions aiming at seeking what is good and just.
Del valore della dignità della persona umana rischia di essere il più grande vulnus nell'implementazione e nello sviluppo di questi sistemi. Non dobbiamo dimenticare infatti che nessuna innovazione è neutrale. Nessuna innovazione è neutrale.
Indeed, we must remember that no innovation is neutral. Technology is born for a purpose and, in its impact on human society, always represents a form of order in social relations and an arrangement of power, thus enabling certain people to perform specific actions, while preventing others from performing different ones. In a more or less explicit way, this constitutive power dimension of technology always includes the worldview of those who invented and developed it. This likewise applies to artificial intelligence programs. In order for them to be instruments for building up the good and a better tomorrow, they must always be aimed at the good of every human being. They must have an ethical inspiration. Moreover, an ethical decision is the one that takes into account not only an action's outcomes but also the values at stake and the duties that derive from those values. This is why I welcomed both the 2020 signing in Rome of the Rome Call for AI Ethics and its support for that type of ethical moderation of algorithms and artificial intelligence programs that I call alga ethics. In a pluralistic and global context, where we see different sensitivities and multiple hierarchies in the scale of values, it might seem difficult to find a single hierarchy of values, yet in ethical analysis we can also make use of other types of tools. If we struggle to define a single set of global values, we can, however, find shared principles with which to address and resolve dilemmas or conflicts regarding how to live.
E per ultimo, la politica di cui c'è bisogno. C'è bisogno di una politica su questo.
And finally, the politics that is needed. We cannot conceal the concrete risk inherent in its fundamental design that artificial intelligence might limit our worldview to realities expressible in numbers and enclosed in predetermined categories, thereby excluding the contribution of other forms of truth and imposing uniform anthropological, socio-economic and cultural models. The technological paradigm embodied in artificial intelligence runs the risk then of becoming a far more dangerous paradigm, which I have already identified as the technocratic paradigm. This is precisely where your action, political action, is urgently needed. Just as the encyclical Fratelli Tutti, Brothers All, reminds us. It reminds us that for many people today, politics is a distasteful word, often due to the mistakes, corruption, and inefficiency of some politicians. There are also attempts to discredit politics, to replace it with economics, or to twist it to one ideology or another. But can our world function without politics? Can there be an effective process of growth towards universal fraternity and social peace without a sound political life? Our answer to these last questions is no. Politics is necessary.
Mi viene in mente quello che un papa ha detto sulla politica. È la forma
I think about what a pope once said about politics. It is the highest form of charity. It is the highest form of love. Politics is necessary. And I want to reiterate in this moment that in the face of many petty forms of politics focused on immediate interests, true statecraft is manifest when, in difficult times, we uphold high principles and we think of the long-term common good. Political powers do not find it easy to assume this duty in the work of nation building, and much less so in forging a common project for the human family. There is always the temptation of putting everything together, and what comes to mind is a famous novel from the start of the 1900s, an English book, futuristic novel that shows the future, a future without politics, a very uniform future. It's an interesting book, we should read it. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, my reflection on the effects of artificial intelligence on humanity leads us to consider the importance of healthy politics, so that we can look to our future with hope and confidence. I have said previously that global society is suffering from grave structural deficiencies that cannot be resolved by piecemeal solutions or quick fixes. We've got to go to the roots. Much needs to change through fundamental reform and major renewal. Only a healthy politics involving the most diverse sectors and skills is capable of overseeing this process. An economy that is an integral part of a political, social, cultural and popular program directed to the common good could pave the way for different possibilities which do not involve stifling human creativity and its ideals of progress, but rather directing that energy along new channels. This is precisely the situation with artificial intelligence. It is up to everyone to make good use of it, but the onus is on politics to create the conditions for such good use to be possible and fruitful. Thank you. And with that, the Holy Father's discourse at the G7 summit has finished.
Holiness, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, says Giorgio Meloni. Thank you. This is the first time that a pontiff has been to the G7, and your words are really an inspiration for all of us. Thank you. And also thank you for saying that you would stay now afterwards to listen to the other leaders' speeches, because we know that you have lots of things to do, so thank you for that. And so thank you. And now we ask the press to go out. Meloni switches to English. The session. And so that was the end of the Holy Father's address there to the G7. Again, the images have disappeared, but you heard there the Pope's speech, his address to the G7. It was, as Mrs. Meloni said there, the first time that the Pope has addressed the G7 summit, and he spoke about artificial intelligence. He said lots of interesting things.
If you want to listen back to this event at any time, you can find it on our Vatican News YouTube channel and on our Vatican News website, where you can also find summaries of everything the Pope has been up to recently, and that is all accessible at www.vaticannews.va. But of course, please do also take a look at our Facebook, X and Instagram pages. Just search Vatican News on the social media of your choice. And thank you very much. My name is Francesca Merlo.
And I'm Joseph Turek.
And thank you to all of you who have joined us, and thank you for tuning in. Until next time, Laudetur Jesus Christus, praised be Jesus Christ.